Hello, this is Pastor Frank Lewis, and welcome to another program in which I'm going to be discussing with you today identity issues. What happens when the false self actually, and why it becomes so protective. Why does the false self really become protective? It didn't happen by accident that the false self became in control of our lives. When we needed to survive, that's what happened. We created a false self. That was created by me or you asking the question. It didn't really happen this way, but this is a way to think about it. Asking the question, who do I need to become in order to be able to survive, in order to have no more pain or not have as much pain? Who do I need to become in order to get attention, in order to get something that I think I need? And so it didn't just come out of the blue, the false self. It came because we were living in a way as a child, usually anytime from a baby to a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, that's when the false self forms, because that's when there is no ability of the child to be able to have that mental capacity to reason and to really see that the problem's with mom and dad. No, the problem always, as I said in the prior video, the problem is always, the child always believes the problem is theirs. And so what is this false self? It's a survival strategy. It's a set of inner patterns built to protect you when you didn't feel safe, seen, or supported. And when you didn't get the things that you needed, like attention. The tragedy is not that your false self exists. The tragedy is that you may not be able to recognize it. I'm telling you, so many people think that who they are is who their false self is. And that's the tragedy. The tragedy is not knowing that they created an armor, a protection, and their heart became harder because they had to survive. God wired us to survive, and so consequently, this is the way that we survive. We became somebody else. The problem is, and here's the real problem, is that as an adult, now it doesn't serve us. Being a false self doesn't serve us well as we become adults. Your false self is not the enemy. It is what you had to do to survive and try to get what you needed. It's a problem now because you're an adult, but as a child, it saved your life. And it allowed you to be able to function. And that's what God had in mind, is he needed people to survive. So this is the method that he put together in us, that we would create a false self. And to understand how to heal it, you must understand why it formed, how it protects you, and why it refuses to let go until you are more established and more secure and you're safe. Because it's not going to let go. It's not going to stop doing what it does until you actually get emotionally healed. And your emotional healing needs to be rooted in Christ and grounded in truth. So we're going to look deeper into why your false self was formed, but the real key today is we're going to look at why is it so protective? Why does it not let go easily? But before I do, I want to make you aware of a book I wrote, and the book is called The Key. It is the key to what? The key to emotional healing. And the whole thing about the false self, it absolutely underscores why we need emotional healing. So this book is going to help you. You can get it on Amazon, and it will absolutely open your eyes to the fact that you need emotional healing and how to get it. And so It's one of the things that we have to have in order to become more our true, authentic selves. You look at the logo. That's the logo I put together, called Identity Restored, and that is the basis of the logo for my website called identityrestored.net. And so you can come to that and you can actually push the Want Help button and you can actually get in touch with me, and I can get back to you or have one of my people get back to you. And then I have a YouTube channel, Identities Restored, at Identities Restored, and it's plural. So you might want to look into that. So the birthplace of the false self is survival. It's not something that we did by sinning. It's not something that happens because we sinned or missed God's best. It's because we needed to survive. And so your identity is not formed in a vacuum. It is formed in relationships. The problem is the relationships were not healthy. And the relationships are in your home. When you're a child, or when you're a baby, infant, toddler, or small child, the relationships you have with your mother and father, and maybe even with your siblings, but mostly with mom and dad, ended up being not healthy. So you had to survive. And so these relationships really were not nurturing, they were not consistent, and you were not emotionally safe. And don't feel alone. Nobody on the planet is in a position where they escape building a false self. And this is whether they're Christian, non-Christian, it all happens because Satan does not want any human being being their true authentic self. That's just a fact. And so it emerges because the thing that happened is you were not safe. That's the first thing. You were in pain. Safety comes from lack of pain. So if you were in any kind of pain, any kind of emotional pain, it doesn't have to be abuse. It doesn't have to be, anything that is too extreme. It can be as simple as you were neglected. Your parents weren't emotionally available. Well, that caused you to go, well, who do I need to become in order for my parents to pay attention to me? So the young child, you or me, you experienced emotional unpredictability. This is what built the false self. Criticism or need to be perfect. Oh boy, how many of you needed to be perfect for your parents to see you and to say you were okay? Neglect, emotional or physical neglect, caused the false self. Shame-based parenting. My father was so shame-based. I was raised by a shame-based parent, and my mother shame-based. So I had no chance. I was going to be shame-based, and that's what caused me to build one of the things. I had a number of things. Spiritual pressure, performance for God, or fear of God will cause a false self. Rejection or abandonment will cause a false self. Chaos, conflict, or the opposite, which is silence. If your mom or dad, actually just left you alone when you did something bad, or silence treatment, that'll cause the false self. Trauma or betrayal will cause the false self. And any type of lack of emotional connection will cause the false self, because the young child says, what do I need? Who do I need to become in order to be able to be connected and seen and heard by my parents? The whole key is your environment was unsafe. And so that's really what happened. So the question then became, who do I need to be in order to feel safe, in order to feel like I matter, in order to feel like somebody cares about me. And so the need to change yourself to avoid pain and to survive is the origin of the false self. And so the false self is so protective because it lives in fear. Please understand that the reason the false self is created by the child, and the child doesn't even know. See, you didn't know. I didn't know that I created a false self. I didn't even know anything about this until God revealed it to me. And so the child doesn't know they created it. It's involuntary. You can't stop it from happening. And it's in the subconscious. It's below conscious thought. So how is an adult who's living as a false self going to know? Well, they're going to have to get this kind of information. So the false self forms because of fear, deep foundational fear. Fear of being abandoned, fear of not being enough, fear of being too much, fear of being rejected, fear of not being seen, fear of being unworthy. Unworthy of what? Unworthy of love, unworthy of attention. Fear of not being lovable. You didn't have the spiritual, emotional, or cognitive maturity as a young child to interpret these experiences accurately. So what happened to you in this unhealthy environment, you couldn't interpret it correctly because you didn't have that ability to reason. Your brain wasn't set up properly, and so you hadn't grown up to the point where you could reason. Instead, you and all the children, as I said, of the world, tried to control pain by controlling themselves, by being somebody they were not created to be. So the false self becomes a mask, not to deceive others. We're not trying to deceive others, just to protect yourself from further injury. I had a mask. I lived behind a mask and a facade. I absolutely did. And I knew I did when I started looking into it. And so I hope you'll understand that you're living behind a facade and a mask. And you're not the person that God created you to be. That's what the Holy Spirit told me to tell the people, to tell you. And so the false self protects through roles, masks, and patterns. And the false self uses strategies to survive. Common patterns include, and here's some common patterns, you might write down what applies to you. The performer. If I impress you, you won't reject me. The people pleaser. If I make you happy, you won't leave me. The perfectionist. If I do everything right, I won't get hurt. The invisible one. If I stay small and quiet and not seen, I won't be criticized. The strong one. If I never show weakness, no one can shame me. The helper. If I meet your needs, mine won't be used against me. Imagine that. The comedian. You probably remember Robin Williams. If I keep you laughing, you won't see my pain. And that's why Robin Williams committed suicide. The controller. If I stay in charge, nothing can surprise me. The achiever. If I produce enough, I will matter. None of these roles are sinful. In isolation, they are survival adaptations and strategies. Every false self carries this secret message: protect your heart at all costs. In other words, that's what the false self is there for, to protect you from being hurt more, protect your heart from being wounded more. The whole reason why that exists. The false self fights so hard to stay in control. And why does it do that? The false self becomes highly protective because it believes, and we're giving it almost like a person, but it's not. It's the way we're describing this so you can understand it. Pain is dangerous. God didn't create us to be in pain. So the false self learned early, pain, either physical or emotional, was overwhelming. It would overwhelm us. It would be overwhelming. It would be hurtful. There was no comfort, no safety, and no repair. So the false self built an emotional armor for protection. Emotional armor around your heart and so you would be protected. Nobody could get in. Vulnerability, the false self believes, leads to being hurt more. If you're vulnerable, you're going to get hurt more. Your false self interprets vulnerability as exposure. It doesn't see it as a way to be known at a deep emotional level. No, it doesn't. It actually sees that it's better that if you don't open up. It's better if you that you actually don't let people in. It's better that you keep them away. That's how I believe, for sure. Love feels unpredictable and untrustworthy. It can't be trusted. If your parents were inconsistent, giving love to you off and on or not at all, your false self concluded love is earned. Love has to be earned. Love must be managed, and love is unsafe. So many people that have become adults believe this. And so your false self tries to control your relational environment. The emotional needs feel shameful. If your emotional needs felt shameful, you felt bad for needing comfort. You needed comfort, but you felt bad about needing it. Or attention or connection. Your false self caused you to silence your needs. That's what I did. I silenced my needs or replaced them with performance. That's something else I did. Strength or compliance. If your false self believes it's the one keeping you safe. This is the biggest and most tragic lie. Your false self genuinely believes that if I stop protecting you, in other words, if this false way of operating is changed, then you're going to fall apart. You won't make it, and you'll break. So when you start healing, emotionally healing, you're on your emotional healing journey, your false self protects. It keeps protecting. It doesn't step back easily. It's not going to pull back because it remembers how it protected you since you were a young child. So it resists, it panics, it tightens up, it holds on, it tightens up its grip of protection. It floods you with old, unresolved emotions. It whispers warnings that is used before. Don't try that. Don't trust these people. Don't feel that. Don't feel that way. Keep your feelings buried. Don't let them see into you. You're safer when you're not exposed and you're staying small. It's important to recognize that the resistance of your false self is based on fear, not just rebellion. It's going to stay that way until you get some more emotional healing. Your false self protects you through control, avoidance, and numbing. So we're going to look into control, avoidance, and numbing. Control, managing people, outcomes, and perceptions. I was an number one controller. Your false self tries to make you safe by controlling these things, what people think of you, wants to control what people think of you, how close you let people get to you, how much you reveal to people. It avoids potential conflict. It controls your emotional atmosphere, your performance, your appearance, your spiritual behavior. Control is not about power that the false self has. It is about preventing more pain for you. And what is avoidance? Avoidance is staying away from anything that feels risky. It could cause you pain. Anything risky that could cause you pain, the false self is going to stay away from it. So it really is going to shut down. It's going to cause you to shut down emotionally. It's going to cause you to withdraw. It's going to cause you to avoid deep personal relationships. It's going to cause you to avoid conflict. It's going to cause you to avoid being vulnerable. It's going to cause you to procrastinate. I procrastinated. A lot of people procrastinate. It's going to keep you emotionally distant. It doesn't want you to be known at a deep level. The problem with avoidance is it gives temporary relief, but means long-term isolation. Very, very important to realize that. Now we're going to look at numbing, disconnecting from what feels too intense. Remember, pain can be overwhelming. So what do people do? One of these three. Numbing can look moral or immoral, dramatic or subtle. So you can get busy. That's a form of numbing. You can be an overeater. That's a form of disconnecting. You can be, scrolling on your phone. You can be really involved with your devices. You can be overworking. That's one of the things I did, overworking. You can be overhelping, like my wife, just helping everyone, but not herself. You can be binge watching TV, your phone, your computer. You can end up performing religiously, believing that God needs you to do something in order to be loved, accepted, and approved. It's not true, but that's what happens. And you can be addicted to something. You can have fantasies. Well, if I did this, then that would happen. Emotional detachment. So numbing, disconnecting from what feels too intense. Numbing can convince you that you are fine, that you're okay, but only by disconnecting you from your real, true, authentic self. And now we're going to look at why the false self cannot produce your freedom. It's very important. Your false self protects you, but it cannot heal you. And the question is, why? Because your emotional healing requires honesty. It requires you being known. Your false self hides. Emotional healing requires vulnerability. Your false self guards from emotional vulnerability. Your healing requires surrender. Your false self controls. It doesn't give up. Your healing requires connection. Your false self isolates. So you can begin to see what's happening here that the false self does more clearly. More importantly, your emotional healing requires love, and your false self refuses to receive love because it fears love will hurt again. Because love hurt before, so love is going to hurt again. You cannot be loved when you're living out of your false self. Only your true self can receive love. Only your true self can heal your emotional wounds. Actually, that's because you become honest, you become vulnerable, and that's how you get healing. How can you disarm your false self so your true self can emerge? That's a question. Well, your false self is not destroyed by force. It's not destroyed by your willpower. You cannot willpower yourself through this. It is disarmed by you becoming safe. Here are the ways you can build that safety. You can have self-awareness. It's really important to name what's happening. Your false self loses power when you can say, this is my true self. This is an old survival pattern trying to protect me. Naming breaks the power of your false self. Self-compassion. Self-compassion is so important. You replace fear with kindness to yourself. The harshness strengthens your false self. Self-compassion softens it and begins to let go. Self-compassion says, you're doing this because you were once hurting and alone, You don't have to protect me anymore. In other words, you're breaking through. Emotional honesty, letting yourself feel what was suppressed. So many people have suppressed their painful memories. Emotional healing requires letting those painful memories come into your consciousness where it can be comforted rather than feared. Your false self buried or suppressed your painful memories to protect you. You need to have safe relationships. And this is where you're going to let yourself be known without judgment. And your false self formed because it was unsafe in relationships. Emotional healing can take place in reparenting group because it's safe. And we've created reparenting groups, and they're very, very powerful. You can read about that in the book, and I'll have more information on that later. You need to be seen and known without judgment or fear, because that breaks the power of your false self. And you need to encounter the love of Jesus, experiencing what your false self feared. When you experience the tenderness, patience, and safety of Jesus, your false self loosens its protection and your armor weakens. Your body relaxes, your fear quiets. Jesus meets you where your false self formed and is in the place of your childhood fear, and he tells you, you're safe with me. So your goal is not to destroy your false self, it's to release it. Your false self-protection doesn't need to be fought or rejected. That will only strengthen it. It needs to be thanked and released, because once you get enough emotional healing, and that healing comes because you're loved, accepted, and approved for who you are, not what you do. What you do is your false self. Who you are is your real self. Then you become safe again. Then your false self no longer needs to protect you. That's what we do in the group. In the group, people are listened to. In the reparenting group, people are listened to, they're heard, and they're loved for who they are, not what they do. See, that is the reparenting group is actually a community of people that love each other, not for what happened to them. They don't love the false self, they love their true, authentic self. And when that happens, you're going to find a new life.